Bride left by millionaire, and years later he sees her with quadruplets. But when he takes her to court, Olivia Bennet stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her simple white dress. At 28, she was about to marry the man she thought was the love of her life, tech millionaire James Hartley. The small chapel was a far cry from the lavish wedding James's family had pushed for, but Olivia had insisted on something intimate and meaningful. As a dedicated kindergarten teacher from a modest background, Olivia had always felt slightly out of place in James's world of galas and board meetings. But their love had seemed to bridge that gap, or so she thought. Meanwhile, across town, James Hartley, 32, sat in his sleek office, staring at the marriage license on his desk. His mind raced with doubts and fears. The son of a prominent business mogul, James had always lived under the weight of extreme expectations. His whirlwind romance with Olivia had been a breath of fresh air. But as the wedding day approached, old insecurities began to surface. James's phone buzzed with a message from his father. "Remember, son, there's still time to reconsider. The Bennett girl is lovely, but is she really the right fit for our family?" As James's finger hovered over the reply button, his assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Hartley, it's time to leave for the chapel." With a heavy sigh, James stood up, straightened his tie, and headed out. Little did he know that the decision he was about to make would set in motion a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. In a small apartment across the city, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a brilliant fertility specialist, reviewed Olivia's file one last time. She had been working with Olivia for months, helping her fulfill her dream of motherhood through IVF. Elena smiled, thinking about how excited Olivia had been at their last appointment. "Today's the big day," Elena murmured to herself. "I hope it all goes well for her." As the clock ticked closer to the ceremony, these three lives, Olivia, James, and Elena, were about to intersect in ways none of them could have anticipated. The story that would unfold over the next few years would be one of heartbreak, resilience, and unexpected joy, culminating in a courtroom drama that would captivate the nation. The stage was set for a tale of love lost, dreams realized, and the true meaning of family, all hanging in the balance as a bride waited for her groom, unaware that her life was about to take a dramatic turn. The small chapel was filled with an air of anticipation. Guests murmured quietly in their seats, a mix of Olivia's teacher colleagues and James's business associates. Olivia's best friend and maid of honor, Sarah, peeked out from the back room. "Still no sign of James," she whispered to Olivia, trying to keep the worry out of her voice. Olivia nodded, a flicker of anxiety crossing her face. "He's probably just stuck in traffic," she said, more to reassure herself than anyone else. As the minutes ticked by, the murmurs in the chapel grew louder. Olivia's parents exchanged concerned glances, while James's mother sat stiffly, her expression unreadable. Suddenly, the chapel doors burst open. Everyone turned, expecting to see the groom. Instead, it was James's assistant, looking flustered and out of breath. "I'm so sorry," he gasped, his eyes finding Olivia. "Mr. Hartley, he's not coming. He said to give you this." The assistant handed Olivia a sealed envelope, his eyes filled with pity. With trembling hands, Olivia opened it, her heart pounding. Inside was a short note. "Olivia, I'm sorry. I can't do this. Please forgive me. James." The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Olivia read and reread the words. Sarah rushed to her side, supporting her as she swayed on her feet. "He's not coming," Olivia whispered, her voice barely audible. "He left me at the altar." The news rippled through the chapel, gasps and shocked whispers filling the air. Olivia's parents hurried to embrace their daughter, while James's mother quietly slipped out, her face a mask of embarrassment and relief. As the reality of the situation sank in, Olivia felt a surge of emotions: shock, grief, humiliation. But beneath it all, a spark of anger began to grow. She straightened her shoulders, looked at the gathered guests, and with a voice stronger than she felt, said, "I'm sorry, everyone. It seems there won't be a wedding today." With quiet dignity, Olivia walked out of the chapel, supported by her parents and Sarah. As they left, she caught sight of her reflection in a window. A bride without a groom, a woman whose life had just been turned upside down. In the days that followed, Olivia retreated to her small apartment, ignoring the constant buzz of her phone as news of the failed wedding spread. James made no attempt to contact her, and his family's lawyer delivered a cold message about returning any gifts and settling any outstanding wedding expenses. A week after the non-wedding, Olivia sat in Dr. Elena Rodriguez's office, her wedding dress stuffed in the back of her closet, her engagement ring returned to James's family. "Olivia," Elena said gently, "given the circumstances, I understand if you want to postpone the IVF procedure. We can wait until you're ready." Olivia was quiet for a moment, her hand unconsciously resting on her stomach. Then, with a determination that surprised even her, she shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "I've always wanted to be a mother. I thought I'd be doing this with a partner, but plans change. I want to go ahead with the procedure." Elena studied her patient carefully. "Are you sure? This is a big decision, especially given what you've just been through." Olivia nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I'm sure. James may have taken away my dream of a wedding, but he doesn't get to take away my dream of being a mom." As Olivia left the clinic that day, she felt a newfound sense of purpose. The pain of James's betrayal was still raw, but it was overshadowed by a growing excitement about the future she was choosing for herself. Little did she know that this decision would set in motion a series of events that would bring her face to face with James again, in circumstances neither of them could have imagined. As Olivia threw herself into preparing for potential motherhood, James buried himself in work, trying to forget the woman he'd left behind. But fate had other plans for both of them, plans that would unfold over the next few years and culminate in a shocking reunion and an unprecedented legal battle. The stage was set for a story of love, loss, and unexpected blessings, a tale that would challenge societal norms and force everyone involved to reconsider the true meaning of family. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. Olivia's life had transformed in ways she never could have anticipated on that heartbreaking day at the chapel. Her small apartment was now filled with the joyous chaos of quadruplets, 2 boys and 2 girls, all with Olivia's warm brown eyes and mischievous smiles. The IVF procedure had been more successful than anyone could have predicted. When Dr. Elena had told her she was carrying 4 babies, Olivia had been overwhelmed but determined. Now, as she watched her 4 miracles playing in the living room, she couldn't imagine life any other way. Olivia had thrown herself into motherhood with the same passion she brought to her teaching. She'd taken an extended leave from work, focusing all her energy on raising her children. It wasn't easy being a single mother of quadruplets, but Olivia had built a support network of family, friends, and other single parents that helped her navigate the challenges. On this particular Saturday morning, Olivia was treating her little ones to ice cream in the park. As she wiped sticky hands and laughed at her children's antics, she was unaware of the familiar figure jogging along the path. James Hartley, now 36, had maintained his strict fitness regimen even as he'd climbed higher up the corporate ladder. He was in the middle of his usual weekend run when a burst of childish laughter caught his attention. He turned to see a group of toddlers gathered around a woman whose back was to him. Something about her seemed familiar, and James slowed his pace. As he drew closer, the woman turned, and he felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. It was Olivia, the woman he'd left at the altar 4 years ago. For a moment, James stood frozen, watching as Olivia interacted with the children. His mind raced. Were they hers? They had to be. The resemblance was clear. But how and why were there 4 of them? Before James could decide whether to approach or slip away unnoticed, one of the little boys spotted him. "Mommy, look!" the child exclaimed, pointing at James. Olivia turned and their eyes met. The ice cream cone she was holding slipped from her grasp, splattering on the ground. "James," she whispered, her voice a mix of shock and something James couldn't quite identify. For a long moment, they stared at each other, years of unspoken words hanging in the air between them. Then, Olivia snapped out of her daze, gathering her children close. "Come on, sweethearts," she said, her voice tight. "It's time to go home." As Olivia hurried away, herding her quadruplets with practiced ease, James remained rooted to the spot. His mind was reeling. Olivia had 4 children who looked to be about 3 years old. The timing, could it be possible? In that moment, a seed of suspicion took root in James's mind. He knew Olivia had been planning to undergo IVF around the time of their wedding. Was it possible she had gone through with it even after he'd left her? And if so, what did that mean for him? As James watched Olivia and the children disappear down the path, he made a decision that would change all their lives. He pulled out his phone and dialed his lawyer. "Frank," he said, his voice tight with tension, "I need you to look into something for me. It's about Olivia Bennett and her children." The revelation in the park had set in motion a chain of events that would lead to courtrooms and custody battles, forcing both James and Olivia to confront their past and fight for their future. The story of the bride left at the altar was about to take a turn that no one could have predicted. In the days following the chance encounter in the park, James found himself consumed by thoughts of Olivia and the quadruplets. The more he dwelled on it, the more convinced he became that the children were biologically his. The timing, the resemblance, it all seemed to point to one conclusion. After a week of sleepless nights and distracted days at work, James made a decision that would alter the course of all their lives. He instructed his lawyer to file for a paternity test and potential custody rights. "Are you sure about this, James?" his lawyer, Frank, asked cautiously. "This could open up a whole can of worms. If these children are indeed yours, it comes with a lot of responsibility." James nodded, his jaw set, with determination. "I'm sure. If they're mine, I have a right to know them, to be part of their lives." What James didn't say out loud was the gnawing feeling of regret that had been growing since he saw Olivia in the park. He had spent 4 years trying to convince himself he'd made the right choice in leaving her, but seeing her with those children that might be his, had shaken him to his core. The consequences of James's decision were immediate and far-reaching. Within days, Olivia was served with legal papers demanding a paternity test. The shock and anger she felt upon receiving the documents was overwhelming. "How dare he?" she fumed to Sarah over the phone. "He left me at the altar, and now he thinks he can just waltz back into my life and claim rights to my children?" Sarah tried to calm her friend. "Olivia, breathe. We'll figure this out. Have you called Elena? She might have some advice on how to handle this legally." Olivia nodded, even though Sarah couldn't see her. "That's a good idea. I'll call her right away." Dr. Elena Rodriguez was just as shocked as Olivia when she heard the news. "Olivia, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I'll do everything I can to help. We have all the documentation from the IVF procedure, which should help your case." As the legal machinery ground into motion, the story began to leak to the press. James's prominence in the business world made it impossible to keep the case quiet. Soon, it was splashed across tabloids and discussed on daytime talk shows. Tech millionaire claims quadruplets from jilted bride. Left at the altar, now fighting for her kids. The Olivia Bennett story. The public scrutiny was hard on Olivia. She found herself hounded by reporters every time she left the house. Her quadruplets, too young to understand what was happening, were nonetheless affected by their mother's stress and the constant presence of strangers with cameras. James, for his part, faced backlash from various quarters. Many viewed his actions as those of a callous man trying to assuage his guilt, while others defended his right to know if the children were his. His company's stock took a hit as some customers threatened to boycott over his perceived mistreatment of Olivia. As the court date for the paternity test approached, both James and Olivia found themselves reflecting on the path that had led them to this point. Olivia, surrounded by the chaos of her quadruplets' bedtime routine, felt a fierce protectiveness surge through her. These children were hers. She had carried them, given birth to them, nurtured them every day of their lives. The idea that James might try to take them away filled her with dread and determination. James, alone in his luxurious penthouse, looked at old photos of him and Olivia. He remembered the joy and love he had felt with her and the fear that had driven him away. Now, faced with the possibility of being a father to 4 children, he felt a mix of terror and excitement. Could this be his chance to make things right? The night before the court hearing, neither James nor Olivia got much sleep. Olivia spent hours watching her children sleep, memorizing every detail of their peaceful faces. James paced his apartment, rehearsing what he would say if the tests proved he was the father. As dawn broke on the day of the hearing, both Olivia and James steeled themselves for what was to come. They knew that by the end of the day, their lives would be irrevocably changed. The consequences of James's decision to pursue paternity had set in motion a series of events that would force both of them to confront their past, reevaluate their present, and fight for their future. The courtroom drama that was about to unfold would not only determine the fate of 4 innocent children, but would also challenge societal norms about family, parenthood, and the lengths people will go to for love and redemption. As Olivia and James prepared to face each other across the courtroom, neither could have predicted the twists and turns their story would take, nor the profound ways in which this legal battle would transform them both. While the main drama unfolded between Olivia and James, a secondary plot was developing that would have significant implications for their case and for the broader conversation about reproductive rights and family law. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, deeply troubled by the legal challenge to Olivia's parenthood, decided to take action. She reached out to an old friend, Rebecca Chen, a prominent lawyer specializing in reproductive rights. Rebecca, Elena explained over coffee, this case could set a dangerous precedent. If James wins, it could jeopardize the rights of countless individuals who've used assisted reproductive technology to start families. Rebecca nodded, her legal mind already racing with the implications. You're right, this goes beyond just Olivia and James. We need to approach this systematically. Together, Elena and Rebecca began to build a case not just for Olivia, but for all parents who had used IVF and other fertility treatments. They reached out to advocacy groups, medical associations, and other families who had used assisted reproductive technology. Meanwhile, James's legal action had caught the attention of conservative family values groups. They saw this case as an opportunity to challenge what they viewed as the unnatural creation of families through IVF and other reproductive technologies. One such group, led by the charismatic pastor David Holloway, began a media campaign supporting James's right to claim paternity. A child has the right to know their biological father, Holloway argued on national television. We can't let technology erase the importance of natural parenthood. This ideological battle added another layer of complexity to the already emotionally charged case. Olivia found herself not just fighting for her children, but unwittingly becoming a symbol in a larger cultural war. As the court date approached, both sides gathered their allies. Elena and Rebecca had assembled a team of experts in reproductive medicine, ethics, and family law. They prepared amicus briefs arguing for the rights of IVF parents and the importance of intent in determining parenthood. On the other side, James's legal team, bolstered by conservative think tanks, prepared arguments about the supremacy of biological ties and the potential dangers of unchecked reproductive technology. The media frenzy grew, with pundits debating the case on every news channel. Hashtags like Stand with Olivia and Father's Rights Matter trended on social media, reflecting the deep divide in public opinion. Amidst this storm, Olivia's quadruplets remained blissfully unaware of the controversy surrounding their existence. They continued to grow and thrive, their innocent laughter a stark contrast to the tension engulfing the adults in their lives. One evening, as Olivia tucked her children into bed, her youngest daughter asked a question that cut to the heart of the matter. "Mommy, what's a daddy? Do we have one?" Olivia felt her heart constrict. She had always planned to explain their unique family situation when the children were older, but now that choice might be taken away from her. As she struggled to find the right words, Olivia realized that regardless of the legal outcome, her children's understanding of family and identity would be profoundly shaped by this experience. Meanwhile, James found himself grappling with unexpected emotions. The more he learned about the quadruplets through his legal team's investigations, the more he felt a connection to them. He began to question his motivations. Was he really fighting for the children's best interests, or was this about assuaging his own guilt and loneliness? As the court date loomed ever closer, the secondary players in this drama, Elena, Rebecca, Pastor Holloway, and countless others who had become invested in the case, prepared for a legal battle that would have far-reaching consequences beyond just one family's fate. The stage was set for a showdown that would not only determine the future of Olivia, James, and the quadruplets, but also potentially reshape the legal and cultural landscape of reproductive rights and the very definition of family in the modern age. As the legal battle intensified, the relationship between Olivia and James began to evolve in unexpected ways. Despite the antagonistic nature of their court case, they found themselves forced into a strange kind of coexistence, their lives once again intertwined after years of separation. The first time they came face-to-face outside of court was during a mandatory mediation session. The tension in the room was palpable as they sat across from each other, both trying to avoid direct eye contact. "Before we begin," the mediator said, "I'd like each of you to share what you hope to achieve through this process." Olivia spoke first, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I want to protect my children. They're my world, and I can't bear the thought of losing them or having their lives disrupted." James nodded, then took a deep breath. I want to know my children. If they are mine biologically, I want the chance to be a father to them." As the session progressed, both Olivia and James found themselves revealing more than they had intended. Olivia spoke of the joy and challenges of raising quadruplets alone, while James shared his regrets about leaving Olivia and his fear of commitment that had driven him away. By the end of the session, though no agreement had been reached, something had shifted between them. They had seen glimpses of the people they used to be, the couple that had once been in love. In the weeks that followed, as they waited for the court date, Olivia and James began to communicate more directly, often about practical matters related to the case. Slowly, their conversations started to include updates about the children. One day, James received a text from Olivia with a photo attached. It showed the quadruplets at their preschool art show, proudly displaying their paintings. "Thought you might like to see this," the message read. James felt a lump form in his throat as he looked at the smiling faces of the children who might be his. He wrote back, "Thank you. They're beautiful. You've done an amazing job with them." This small exchange opened the door to more sharing. Olivia found herself sending James updates about the children's milestones and funny anecdotes about their daily lives. James, in turn, began to ask more questions about their personalities and interests. As they learned more about each other's lives, old feelings began to resurface, complicated by years of hurt and the current legal battle. James found himself remembering why he had fallen in love with Olivia in the first place. Her kindness, her strength, her ability to find joy in small moments. Olivia, despite her best efforts to maintain emotional distance, couldn't help but notice how James had matured, how the arrogant young millionaire had been replaced by a man grappling with his past mistakes. Their lawyers advised them to limit their interactions, warning that anything said could be used in court. But Olivia and James found it increasingly difficult to see each other as adversaries. The turning point came when one of the quadruplets, little Emma, came down with a severe case of flu. Olivia, exhausted from sleepless nights and worried sick, mentioned it in passing to James during a phone call about court documents. Without hesitation, James offered to help. He used his connections to get Emma seen by a top pediatrician and even showed up at the hospital with supplies and food for Olivia. As they sat in the hospital waiting room together, both emotionally drained, James tentatively reached out and took Olivia's hand. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "For everything, for leaving you, for not being there, for putting you through this legal nightmare." Olivia looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. "James, But before she could finish, the doctor came out with news about Emma. In that moment, as they both listened with bated breath, they were united not as legal opponents, but as two people deeply concerned for the welfare of a child. This shared experience marked a significant shift in their relationship. While the legal issues remained unresolved, Olivia and James began to consider the possibility of finding a solution outside of court, one that would allow them both to be part of the children's lives. As the court date drew nearer, they found themselves at another crossroads. Could they find a way to co-parent? Could they move past the hurt and betrayal to forge a new kind of relationship? And most importantly, what would be best for the quadruplets? The journey that had begun with a broken engagement and led through years of separation and legal conflict now seemed to be opening up new possibilities, ones that neither Olivia nor James had dared to imagine. The day of the court hearing arrived, bringing with it a storm of media attention and public speculation. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters and demonstrators from both sides of the issue, their competing chants creating a cacophony of noise. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Olivia sat at one table with her lawyers, including Rebecca Chen, while James sat at the other with his legal team. Both looked tense, the weight of the moment visible in their strained expressions. As the judge entered, and the court was called to order, a hush fell over the room. The air was thick with anticipation as the proceedings began. The lawyers presented their opening statements, each painting a starkly different picture of the situation. James's lawyer emphasized the importance of biological connections and a father's right to know his children. Olivia's team focused on the intent of parenthood, the years of dedicated care she had provided, and the potential harm to the children if their family unit was disrupted. Expert witnesses were called, including Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who testified about the IVF process and the ethical considerations involved. Pastor Holloway also took the stand, arguing for the sanctity of traditional family structures. As the day wore on, the tension in the courtroom grew. Both Olivia and James were called to testify, each recounting their version of events and their reasons for their current positions. When it was James's turn to speak, he surprised everyone by deviating from his prepared statement. "Your Honor," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I came here today thinking I knew what I wanted, but sitting here, listening to everything, I realize I've been wrong." A murmur ran through the courtroom as James continued. "Olivia has been an incredible mother to these children. She's given them everything I couldn't. I thought I wanted custody, but what I really want is a chance to know them, to be part of their lives in whatever way is best for them." He turned to look directly at Olivia. "I'm sorry for everything. I don't want to take the children away from you. I just want a chance to make things right." Olivia, tears streaming down her face, nodded almost imperceptibly. The judge, sensing a shift in the proceedings, called for a recess to allow the parties to confer with their lawyers. In a private conference room, Olivia and James sat across from each other, their lawyers conspicuously absent. "Did you mean what you said in there?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. James nodded. "Every word. Olivia, these past few weeks, getting to know about the kids, seeing how amazing you are with them, I don't want to fight you anymore. I want us to find a way to do this together, if you'll let me." Olivia was quiet for a long moment, years of hurt and recent glimpses of the changed James warring within her. Finally, she spoke. I think we might be able to figure something out. For the kids." When they returned to the courtroom, their lawyers presented a jointly drafted agreement to the judge. It proposed a gradual introduction of James into the children's lives, with Olivia maintaining primary custody, but James being granted visitation rights and involvement in major decisions. The judge, after carefully reviewing the agreement, looked up at Olivia and James. "Are you both certain this is what you want?" They exchanged a glance, years of history passing between them in that look, before turning back to the judge and nodding in unison. "Very well," the judge said. "In light of this agreement, I'm prepared to rule." As the judge began to read out the terms, Olivia and James both felt the weight of years of conflict lifting. They had come to court as adversaries, but were leaving as tentative partners in the most important job of all, raising 4 beautiful children. The climactic courtroom showdown had transformed into something entirely unexpected, a new beginning for a most unconventional family. In the weeks following the court hearing, Olivia and James embarked on the challenging journey of implementing their agreement and integrating James into the children's lives. The process was far from smooth, filled with moments of tension, uncertainty, and unexpected emotions. They decided to start with short, supervised visits at Olivia's home. The first visit was awkward, with James feeling like an intruder in the well-established routines of Olivia and the quadruplets. The children, now 4 years old, were curious about this new person in their lives, but also wary. "Kids," Olivia said, her voice gentle but slightly strained, "this is Mr. James. He's going to be spending some time with us." James knelt down to the children's level, his heart racing. "Hello," he said softly. "It's very nice to meet you all." The quadruplets responded with a mix of shy smiles and hiding behind Olivia's legs. Little Emma, always the bravest, stepped forward. "Do you like to play with blocks?" she asked. James's face lit up. "I love blocks. Shall we build something together?" As James and Emma began to construct an elaborate tower, the other children slowly gravitated towards them, their natural curiosity overcoming their initial hesitation. Olivia watched from the kitchen doorway, a lump forming in her throat. It was beautiful to see James interacting with the children, but it also stirred up complex emotions. This was the life she had once imagined for them all, before James had left her at the altar. Over the next few months, these visits became more frequent and relaxed. James learned the children's routines, their likes and dislikes, their unique personalities. He marveled at how different each child was. Emma, the fearless leader, Michael, the quiet thinker, Sophie, the creative spirit, and Daniel, the peacemaker. Olivia, for her part, had to navigate her own conflicting feelings. She was grateful for the help, as raising quadruplets alone had been exhausting. But she also felt a twinge of jealousy at how quickly the children had taken to James, and fear that she might somehow be replaced in their affections. One evening, after James had left following a particularly successful visit that ended with all 4 children clamoring for him to stay longer, Olivia found herself in tears. Sarah, who had come over to provide moral support, hugged her friend tightly. "Oh, Liv, this must be so hard for you." Olivia nodded, wiping her eyes. "It is. I'm happy the kids are bonding with him, I really am. But part of me is terrified. What if they decide they like him better? What if he disappears again and breaks their hearts like he broke mine?" Sarah listened patiently, then said, "Have you talked to James about how you're feeling?" Olivia shook her head. "I don't want him to think I'm going back on our agreement." "Liv," Sarah said gently, "this is new territory for all of you. I think you need to be honest with James about your fears if this is going to work." Taking Sarah's advice to heart, Olivia asked James to stay for a talk after his next visit. After the children were in bed, they sat at the kitchen table, 2 mugs of tea between them. "James," Olivia began hesitantly, "I need to be honest with you about something." James nodded encouragingly, sensing the seriousness in her tone. Olivia took a deep breath and poured out her fears about being replaced, about James leaving again, about the children getting hurt. As she spoke, tears began to fall. Years of pent-up emotion finally finding release. James listened intently, his own eyes misting over. When Olivia finished, he reached across the table and took her hand. "Olivia, I can't imagine how difficult this has been for you. I know I hurt you terribly, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. But I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. These kids, our kids, they're everything to me now. And you're the most amazing mother. I could never replace you. I just want to support you, to be a part of this family, in whatever way I can." His words, spoken with such sincerity, began to chip away at the wall Olivia had built around her heart. For the first time since James had come back into their lives, she allowed herself to truly believe that maybe, just maybe, this could work. From that night on, their co-parenting relationship began to evolve into something more cooperative and open. They started having regular check-ins about the children, sharing not just schedules and logistics, but also their hopes and concerns. James, true to his word, remained consistent in his involvement. He rearranged his work schedule to be available for school events, doctor's appointments, and family outings. He even enrolled in parenting classes to better understand child development and effective parenting strategies. Olivia, in turn, made efforts to include James in family traditions and decision-making. She shared photo albums and videos of the children's early years, helping James feel more connected to the time he had missed. As the months passed, their attempts at conflict resolution began to bear fruit. The tension that had marked their early interactions gradually eased, replaced by a growing sense of partnership. They weren't a conventional family by any means, but they were finding their own unique balance. The quadruplets, sensing the change in dynamics, began to flourish even more. They loved having both Olivia and James in their lives, and the fear of divided loyalties slowly faded. 1 year after the court hearing, as they all gathered to celebrate the quadruplets' 5th birthday, Olivia and James shared a quiet moment watching the children play. "We're doing okay, aren't we?" Olivia said softly, a hint of wonder in her voice. James nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Better than okay, I'd say." "These kids are amazing, Olivia, and it's all because of you." Olivia shook her head. "Not just me, not anymore. They need both of us, James. I see that now." Their moment of peace was interrupted by Emma running up to them, her face smeared with birthday cake. "Mommy, Daddy, come play with us." James froze, his eyes wide. It was the first time any of the children had called him Daddy. He looked at Olivia, unsure how to react. Olivia smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "Well, you heard her. Let's go play." As they joined the boisterous party games, both Olivia and James felt a sense of completeness they hadn't experienced before. Their journey was far from over, but they had made significant strides in resolving their conflicts and creating a loving, if unconventional, family unit. The quadruplets' 5th birthday party marked a significant turning point for the newly formed family. The ease with which Emma had called James Daddy and Olivia's acceptance of it signaled a shift in their family dynamics. In the weeks that followed, James and Olivia had several heartfelt conversations about their future. They realized that their current arrangement, while functional, wasn't ideal for the children's sense of stability. "I've been thinking," James said one evening after the kids were in bed. "What if I moved closer? Not in here, obviously, but maybe a house in the neighborhood. That way I could be more involved in their daily lives without disrupting the routines you've established." Olivia considered his proposal. The idea of having James so close was both comforting and terrifying. "That could work," she said slowly. "But James, if we do this, you have to be all in. These kids can't handle you disappearing again." James reached out and took her hand. "Olivia, leaving you at the altar was the biggest mistake of my life. I won't make that mistake again. I'm here for good, for you and for our children." His use of "our children" didn't escape Olivia's notice. She squeezed his hand and nodded. "Okay, let's do it." This decision set them on a new path. James found a house just a few blocks away and threw himself into creating a space that would make the quadruplets feel at home. Olivia helped, offering insights into the children's preferences and needs. Their new proximity allowed for a more fluid co-parenting arrangement. The children started spending regular nights at James's house, and he became a fixture at family dinners at Olivia's. As they settled into this new routine, both Olivia and James found themselves reevaluating their personal and professional lives. Olivia, inspired by their journey, began writing a book about her experiences as a single mother of quadruplets. James, realizing the importance of work-life balance, started delegating more at his company to spend time with his family. Their story, which had once been tabloid fodder, now became an inspiration. They were invited to speak at conferences about modern family dynamics and co-parenting. The legal precedent set by their case led to changes in laws surrounding reproductive rights and paternity. As Olivia and James navigated this new chapter in their lives, they remained committed to putting their children first. Their past hurts weren't forgotten, but they were overshadowed by the joy of watching their quadruplets grow and thrive in a home full of love. This turning point opened up a future neither of them had imagined possible, one where their broken engagement had led to an even stronger, more mature love, and a family bonded not just by blood, but by choice and commitment. As the years passed, both Olivia and James underwent profound personal growth, their experiences shaping them into very different people from who they had been at the start of their journey. Olivia, once devastated by James's abandonment, had blossomed into a confident and resilient woman. Raising quadruplets as a single mother had taught her strength she never knew she possessed. Now, with James back in the picture, she was learning to trust again, to open her heart not just to her children, but to the possibility of love. One evening, as she finished a chapter of her book, Olivia reflected on her journey. She realized that the pain of being left at the altar, while excruciating at the time, had set her on a path that led to the 4 greatest joys of her life. Her children had given her a purpose and a love she might never have known otherwise. James's transformation was equally profound. The selfish, commitment-phobic young millionaire had grown into a devoted father and partner. He had learned the hard way that true happiness couldn't be found in wealth or success, but in the love of family and the joy of watching his children grow. As he helped the quadruplets with their homework one afternoon, James caught sight of his reflection in the window. He barely recognized the man he saw, not because of any physical changes, but because of the contentment and purpose shining in his eyes. Both Olivia and James found themselves continually amazed by their children. Each of the quadruplets had developed their own unique personality, interests, and talents. Emma had become a fearless little athlete. Michael was showing a prodigious talent for mathematics. Sophie was a budding artist, and Daniel had a gift for bringing people together. Watching their children grow and helping them navigate life's challenges gave both Olivia and James a new perspective on their own past. They began to see their journey not as a series of mistakes and hurts, but as a winding path that had led them exactly where they needed to be. One lazy Sunday afternoon, as the family enjoyed a picnic in the park where James had first seen Olivia with the quadruplets, they found themselves reminiscing about the past few years. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't seen us that day in the park?" Olivia asked James, her voice soft. James was quiet for a moment, watching the children play. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but then I look at our family, at the life we've built, and I'm just grateful that I did." Olivia nodded, understanding completely. "It's strange, isn't it? How something that seemed so terrible at the time can lead to something so beautiful." Their conversation was interrupted by the quadruplets calling for them to join in their game. As Olivia and James ran to play with their children, they both felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them to this point. They had grown from a jilted bride and a commitment-phobic millionaire into partners, co-parents, and friends. Their past hurts had been transformed into wisdom, their fears into strength. And while their path had been unconventional, the family they had created was bound by a love deeper and more resilient than they could have ever imagined. As the sun began to set on their perfect family day, both Olivia and James felt a sense of peace. They had faced their past, overcome their fears, and in doing so, had given their children the greatest gift of all: a family full of love, understanding, and second chances. As the quadruplets' 10th birthday approached, Olivia and James found themselves marveling at how far they had come. The journey that had begun with heartbreak at the altar had transformed into a beautiful, if unconventional, love story. The party they threw was a joyous celebration, not just of the children's birth, but of the family they had all become. Friends, family, and even some of the lawyers and doctors who had been part of their story gathered to commemorate the occasion. During a quiet moment amidst the festivities, Olivia and James stood together, watching their children laugh and play. "You know," James said softly, "I think I finally understand what real love is. It's not about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about choosing each other every day, through the good and the bad." Olivia nodded, leaning into him. "And it's about forgiveness, about growing together instead of apart." Their words echoed the themes that had defined their journey: the power of forgiveness, the strength found in adversity, and the beauty of unconventional families. As they rejoined the party, both Olivia and James felt a deep sense of gratitude. Their story had not been easy or straightforward, but every challenge had led them to where they were now, surrounded by love, bound by choice rather than obligation. The quadruplets, oblivious to the complex journey that had brought their parents together, simply reveled in the love that surrounded them. In their innocent joy, Olivia and James saw the ultimate vindication of their choices and the promise of a bright future. Their tale served as a powerful reminder that love stories don't always follow a conventional path, that families come in all shapes and sizes, and that with forgiveness, understanding, and commitment, even the most broken beginnings can lead to beautiful endings.